Welcome to Middle Math Academy, Converting Fractions, Decimals, and Percents, level number 3. If you're looking for any more converting fractions, decimals, and percent practice, please feel free to check out levels 1 and 2 or levels 4 and 5. Our learning target today is I can convert fractions, decimals, and percent. Go ahead and rate yourself on how confident you feel about this learning target 1 through 5. 1 is the lowest amount of confidence, 5 is the highest amount of confidence. At the end of the lesson, we'll come back and rate ourselves again after we get some more practice. Once you've rated yourself on our learning targets, pause the video and complete the opening problem. As a reminder, this video will not go over every single problem, so please make sure that you're following along, keeping up with the examples, and writing what I'm writing. That way, when you go to do independent practice, you'll feel confident. Let's take a look at our notes. All right, so to convert fractions to decimals, we are going to divide the numerator by the denominator. Make sure you're writing with me. So in this case, I'll do 5 divided by 100. And when I do that, I will get 0.05. So fraction to decimal, we divide. All right, to convert from a decimal to a percent, we can multiply our decimal by 100. So in this case, I'll multiply 0.05 times 100, and I get 5%. Another way to convert decimals to percents is by taking your decimal and moving it forward 2 spots. Okay, so when we multiply by 100, we're really just changing the place value of our decimal and moving it forward 2. All right, so we've talked about fractions to decimals, decimals to percents. Now we're going to go the reverse direction. So if we're multiplying our decimal by 100 to get our percent, whenever we're reversing that, instead of multiplying, we're going to do the inverse of multiplication, which is division. So we're going to do 19 divided by 100. Remember, you could also just move your decimal back 2 spots. And remember that percents are always out of 100. So 19% as a decimal is 0.19. All right. When we want to go from a decimal to a fraction, we are going to use place value to write the fraction. Okay, so if you look at the bottom of this page, there's a place value chart, and you can see that 2 numbers to the right of the decimal is the hundredths place. So the way we would say this out loud is 19 hundredths. And let me just show you that at the bottom real quick. Okay, so I wrote in 0.19, and I can see that our number goes all the way to the hundredth spot. So like I mentioned, we would say this as 19 hundredths, which makes it easy to write as a fraction, 19 over 100. Let's look at example number 1. All right, example number 1 says, write each decimal in words. Use the place value chart if you need help. So make sure you're using pencil if you are using the place value chart. Our first problem is 0.74. So if we do use our place value chart, okay, I can see that the way I would say this out loud is 74 hundredths. So I'm going to write that in words right here. Go ahead and pause the video and complete this next one on your own. All right, so for this next one, our 5 is in the hundredths place. So you should have 5 hundredths. Make sure you're spelling that correctly and you didn't accidentally write hundreds. Okay, when it's to the right of the decimal, it's hundredths. And now this last one. Now we have a number to the left of our decimal in the ones place. So the way we're going to say this out loud is 6 and 3/100ths. Okay, so when the number's to the left, we can write 6. And then before you go to the right of the decimal, you write and then 3/100ths. Pause the video, make sure you have this down. Once you have this down, I want you to pause again and fill in this chart using the notes above. So pause and complete example 2. All right, for example 2, we have 5/100ths. So the way we can write that as a fraction, boom, like that. We can multiply our decimal by 100 to get 5%. The second row, you should have done 3 divided by 6. 3 divided by 6 is 0.5 or 5/10. When we multiply by 100, we get 50%. And if you got 3 out of 6 right on a quiz, that's why your grade would be a 50%. You got half correct. And then our last problem, 45%, you can either move the decimal back 2 spots or divide by 100, and you get 45/100ths. And the way we can write that as a fraction is just like this. Pause the video, make sure you have this down, and come back to the video when you're ready for page 2. Let's take a look at page number 2. Problem A says, percents are always out of. Well, I know percents are always out of 100. And then our note says there are 100 squares to the right. How many are shaded? Well, I know each column is 10. So if I'm counting how many are shaded, I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So 80 out of 100 squares are shaded. So if 80 out of 100 are shaded, I can write that as a fraction, 80 over 100. 80/100ths as a decimal is written like this. 8/10ths is also fine since we have 0 in the hundredths place. We have 8 rows of 10 on our grid. And then as a percent, I know I can multiply my decimal times 100, or I can move my decimal to the right 2 spaces to get 80%. Once you have this down, pause the video and complete problem B independently. Okay, so you're completing problem B on your own. Let's take a look at problem C together. C says, use the picture below to write the values of fraction, decimal, and percent. Okay, so I'm going to get you started on this problem and then have you complete the rest on your own. So when I see this image, I can see that all 100 squares are shaded in here. So that tells me that's one whole. Okay, so for my fraction, I can write 1. For my decimal, I can write 1, then my decimal. Then I can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 100 shaded. Okay, so here we have 4 out of 100. So that means our fraction is 1 4/100ths. I want you to fill in the rest of this decimal, the percent, and then answer this problem. Come back to the video once you are done all of page 2. Now that you're done page 2, you're going to complete page 3 on your own. Come back to the video once you finish page 3. Go ahead and complete all of page 4 on your own. Once you finish page 4, come back to the video. Remember, you have notes on page 1 to help you. Take a look at those, look at the examples if you need any help, and come back after page 4. Pause the video and check your work for the top of page 4. Pause the video and check your work for the bottom of page 4. You can see that in problem A, we shaded 30 out of 100 boxes to represent 30%. And in problem B, we shaded 3 out of 100 boxes to represent 3 hundredths. All right, let's take a look at page 5. What I want you to do is complete the first 3 rows, then come back to the video once you finish those 3. All right, let's check our work for our first row. I can see our decimal is filled in, and the way I would say this out loud is 5 hundredths. Our 5 is in the hundredths place, so I'm going to go ahead and write that as a fraction, 5 hundredths. To go from a decimal to a percent, I can multiply by 100 or move my decimal forward 2 spots, and we get 5%. So go ahead and check your work. For our second problem, we have our fraction filled in this time. So to go from a fraction to a decimal, I'm going to do 5 divided by 8. 5 divided by 8 is 625 thousandths. To go from a decimal to a percent, I can once again multiply by 100 or move my decimal forward 2 spots, and I get 62.5%. Check your work, fix any errors. And then in our third row, we have our percent filled in. So I know that percents are always out of 100. So I can fill in my fraction as 18 over 100, 18 hundredths. And then when I say that out loud, that tells me this value for my decimal. I can represent 18 hundredths as a decimal just like this. Go ahead and complete the rest of page 5 on your own. Come back to the video when you're ready for page 6. Go ahead and complete all of page 6. Pause the video. Once you finish page 6, come back to the video. Let's take a look at our common misconception problem on page 6. Mia said that 15 twentieths as a decimal can be written as 0.75. Ava said 15 twentieths as a decimal is 15.20. Who is correct? Explain how you convert fractions to decimals. All right, let's go ahead and check our answer. The correct answer is Mia is correct because 15 divided by 20 equals 0.75. When you convert fractions to decimals, divide your numerator and denominator. Don't fall into the trap of thinking 15 twentieths is 15.20 because it has the same number. The fraction line means divide. Pause the video, check your work, and then come back to the video. To wrap up today's lesson, make sure that you answer our 3 debrief questions. In your own words, what did you learn today? Sometimes it helps to look at our learning targets from page 1. How much effort did you put in? Rate yourself 1 through 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. Explain. And what do you think is a common misconception a student might make when converting fractions, decimals, and percentages? Once you've answered these 3 questions, we're going to flip back to page 1 and rate ourselves after the lesson for the learning target. So if you flip back to page 1, as a reminder, our learning target is I can convert fractions, decimals, and percents. You already rated yourself 1 through 5 at the beginning of the lesson before we had a lot of practice. Now that you've gotten more practice, I want you to rate yourself again. 1 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. How confident do you feel? And thank you for joining us today at Middle Math Academy. If you're looking for any more converting fractions, decimals, and percent practice, remember we have 5 levels of challenge, and each level comes with a video and a lesson. So feel free to check them out, and I hope you have a great day.